Welcome back to Starfish Coaching. I'm Eric Lee. Today, for my Founders Interview Series, I get the honor of interviewing Reisa Pollard with Beyond Beige. She's an award-winning designer, local artist here in Vancouver, and she's going to share with us some great tips for aspiring designers starting their own business. Now, let's introduce Reisa Pollard. Well, thank you, Reisa. Thank you so much for coming on to my podcast.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, so I wanted to just introduce to the audience. Reisa Pollard is with Beyond Beige, and she's local in my town, Vancouver, and she's done amazing work, won some great awards. The most recent one, I think you were recognized with the NKBA as Design of the Year, right? Was that it?
Yeah, that's right. I was shocked to achieve that for not the second year in a row, but 2 times. So to get it this year was very flattering.
Oh, that's so great. I love seeing people excel in their field. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So maybe you can dive a little bit more into introductions for our listeners. Tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about Beyond Beige.
So Beyond Beige has been operating as a full service design firm for a long time. I think we're in our 18th or 19th year now. Wow. And so we do a really wide range of projects, which keeps us from getting bored. So we have a lot of diversity, which I really enjoy. That's that's by design. And we just really enjoy bringing the aspects of the client's personality, their desires as to the way that they want to live, and their connection to their environment into a residential space. So that's where we really thrive with the residential. And then we change that philosophy to commercial with, what is the underlying thing that we're actually selling? What's really happening here? It's obvious to say, oh, it's, a barbershop, we're selling haircuts. But the underlying thing is that you're selling, a social atmosphere and just different things like that. So, so that's sort of the philosophy of Beyond Beige, is to take each project on with a lot of insight into what's behind the obvious, and to enjoy each project.
Right, for sure. Right, if we can't enjoy what we do, then why are we doing it?
That's right.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad you found that for yourself.
Yeah.
Let's explore a little bit about when you first start business. I'm curious, have you always known that you'd be in business for yourself? And what was the impetus of you starting your own business?
Just the opposite, actually. My family, bless them, did not believe that interior design was a profession. They supported it as a hobby and thought that it would make a great pastime in my spare time. And so I really went forward thinking that I would do something more academic in their footsteps. I, went to UBC and came out with a bachelor's, still having no idea what I was doing. And I ended up, ironically, working at the downtown library and venturing down a path of being a librarian, which seems truly comical today, and comical to most people. And so I tried a whole bunch of different things with this kind of background noise of design continually nagging at me. And so in my world, it took me a long time to settle on the fact that this is really what I was meant to do. And I guess there's a beauty in finding that out by trying everything else out first and then coming back to it, so you know that it's something that's really drawing you. And so and so after doing a number of other things for quite a long time, I went back to school and went back to BCIT. And I found it so interesting to realize that although my instincts were there, and some people, I believe, could be schooled and never have the instincts, right. The reverse was also true, that there was a lot of formality to what you learn, and it's not all subjective. There are better practices to follow. And so it was of great value to to go back to school, and it wasn't just something that I was like meant to do. You have to learn to do it as well. And so it came out with what I felt was the combined elements of the intuition with the formal training.
Yeah, that's great. So you kind of had the best of both worlds, I guess, that way.
Yeah, I felt like I was ready to go at that point,
Hmm. So,
but I wasn't.
well, were you always quite entrepreneurial, or this was your first business that you ventured into?
I was, when I think back on it now, I did have an entrepreneurial spirit. Again, my parents did not, and so they didn't really want to harness that
Right.
spirit. So I, had many ventures that I did, but I don't think I actually believed that I would become an entrepreneur and become a business owner until it was just really there in front of me, and I almost felt like I had no other option.
Right. So why did you pick starting your own firm versus working for someone then at the time?
Oh, that's a great question. It was sort of a default. I started my business in a furniture store, and it just kind of exploded. And so the next thing I knew, my passion had really come forward. And so I didn't really have relativity to the fact that suddenly I had all these clients and I was doing everything live and learning as I went. And it was just really growing exponentially, but not with any kind of management or control attached to it, just with straight desire. And then the furniture store owner turned around and told me that in fact he did not want me to be doing that. He wanted me to be running the furniture store business. And so I sort of had a decision to make, and I thought, I think I'll just go and start doing this on my own. And so I, took my pencil box of supplies and and went to my um, room and started a business. And I mean, I can look back and laugh at it and now, but certainly I don't know that I would recommend it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's a daunting task, so I'm proud of you for just jumping in there.
Yeah, I mean, you just pardon the expression, but you learn everything just ass backwards. Everything is difficult because um, you don't have a template or a um, you know, or any kind of reference to any business element of it. So you've learned design, you know that you're good at design, but how on earth do you invoice people, and how do you set forth having a process and a protocol that sets the expectations? I didn't have any of those things, and I had no reference to any of those things. So I felt like that was a huge hindrance to me being able to get on with the business.
Right, for sure. So I guess before you started the business, you probably had some expectation, and then when you actually got into the business, let's say 5 years afterwards, or even now, looking back, was it what you expected from the early days?
Um, Gosh, that's a really good question. No, I don't think so. I mean, I guess that's kind of a multifaceted question. And so there are aspects um, that have, surpassed my expectation as to what I thought that this would look like. I don't think I expected to have the number of staff that I do. I
Right.
sort of understood the interior design business to be a person and potentially one other person. So I think that that has been different. But I also didn't expect that I would be needing to do so much business, right? I thought that I
Yes.
would be doing 90% design and 10% business, and that was
Right.
just really wrong.
Yeah, I think a lot of designers and artists actually start out that way with their business, right? Because either working for someone or being artists on their own, that's the majority of what they do. But when you grow a business, there's just so much more to it, right?
Yeah, I remember very early on really struggling with some aspect of the business and reading the E-Myth and
Right.
the analogy, of course, is that just because you love ice cream doesn't mean you're going to be good at owning an ice cream store. And
Yeah.
that somehow being, I guess, that I love ice cream really hit home. And
Mhm.
that really resonated that of course, there are two completely different things going on parallel to each other and that I um, was um, obviously quite good at the actual design, but really not good at running a business. I mean, as mentioned, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have parents that had any entrepreneurial spirit in them whatsoever. So I was really like living this, you know, work life completely on my own and really trying to figure it out,
Right.
which is which is just can be very very as you mentioned daunting and difficult.
Yeah, I remember also because I started similar to you, just home office, growing a one like by myself and then taking on one staff. But I remember early on as a owner, as business owners, we can talk, but it's a little bit lonely up there, right? Because you can't confide in your staff, obviously for confidentiality, and you don't have colleagues. So yeah, there is that a bit of that aspect of who do I go to and where do I turn to, right?
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, that's it was very true. And there wasn't the same, I mean, back then I feel like I'm talking like a person that's really old, but back then there wasn't the same level of connection online, right? So you didn't have like groups
Mm.
and meetups and all of these different things that you could potentially tap into now to have some camaraderie on what you're going through. It was very much, and I actually, not only did I not know anybody that was really entrepreneurial, but I also didn't know any designers. So I was really just going at it blindly.
No, that's true. And even if, like, again, I'm applying to my growth. The only designers that I can really confide on were the ones in my class, because the mentality is, well, it's hard to go to a competitor and ask them and share struggles, right? That's just unheard
Yeah,
of.
yeah, that's right. I actually had a very like unsettling experience when the reason I ended up at the furniture store is because there was a designer that was working there and I quite admired her. And so when I got hired, I was very excited to have the opportunity to work with her. And so I got hired and I went up to her and I said, "Oh, hi, I'm Reisa. I'm, been hired as a furniture store consultant, but also as a designer." And she looked at me and she said, okay. And I said, "Oh, I'm so excited to learn things from you." And she said, "No, not me, honey. You won't be talking to me."
Oh yeah, I know. Unfortunately, that's the mentality of a lot of people out there.
So, it was a wonderful experience to have because I believe that it set something in me that I thought I will never, ever, ever um, recreate that experience for anybody else.
Right.
My door is wide open to anybody that feels like they can garner some information from me or that I have something to offer them, that I will
Yeah.
encourage that on all levels.
That's great. And, this podcast is an evidence of that, right? I reach out to you where
Mm.
we know of each other, we're part of Haven and we're in the
Yeah,
same city, but we've really never shared ideas like this for the
right.
benefit of the new designers.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
So in the early days, how did you learn about business? Because obviously you didn't do MBA or anything like that. How did you learn on your own?
I did actually separately do an entrepreneurial program
Oh,
through
good.
BCIT,
Okay.
um, but I felt that it was sort of like skimmed the surface.
Mm.
Really was what it
Right.
was, and of course it wasn't specifically applicable to the design industry. And there's so much that's actually very unique to the design industry. I feel that's it's hard to relate it to a number of other businesses. So I did do my best to to read and to take on and to absorb whatever I could. And I did make sure that if there was somebody that was senior to me that was in any kind of business, that I always found them extremely interesting, and I probably had just a million questions to annoy them with. Um, People's fathers and things that that were either running their own business or in some sort of management level. And so I always found that extremely interesting. So I would always try to tap in whatever I could.
Right, for sure. So if you had a time machine and you went
Mhm.
back, what would you have done differently for your business?
I would have taken the time to connect with people or groups or anybody that I could see had relatable, like relevant knowledge. And so,
Hmm.
or going and doing some sort of internship or anything to be in that real life sort of arena and to be trying to connect with people, because there is just so much that you can download from somebody that has, if you're interested, that has knowledge and experience that they're willing to share and offer. That is so valuable. Like, things that like they might even see as being like almost too basic to relate to you. But if you're there and asking the question, there's just layers and layers of information that you can take in that will just set you free of being so bogged down in all of these different things, or just trial and error things that like are more error than trial, right? And so I can 100% say that I would just have been more patient, right? So that I could have taken the time to have, maybe that first connection didn't work out, but there would have been future ones that potentially could have, or I could have worked in a firm, or I could have reached out to more designers that may have possibly, connected with me. So that is definitely one big thing that I can look back on and see.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. So early on in your career, who did you look up to, whether it's on the design side or the business side? Were there any ones that you like looked up to or was aspiring to be?
yeah, I mean, gosh, I'm gonna probably date myself now. So, I was quite obsessed with Sarah Richardson, and
Right.
and then further to that, there was a number of other designers probably that I sort of admired. And of course, I was aware of Kelly Wearstler and some other um, designers. And then, so there was a number of them that I would, like, I'm trying to remember because I was going to say follow, but of course back then I wasn't following them in the same way. So I was aware of them, and I would, I would probably get books on them is probably what I was doing. Yes, I do remember my first Kelly Wearstler book, and being very, very excited to go through that. So, um, so that I did find really helpful. And then I hadn't been in business for that long when I had this amazing opportunity to go and visit Jamie Drake, who is a
Hmm.
U.S. Interior designer
Right.
for the Stars. And so I went to meet him and hang out with him for a little bit. And he was just such an amazing character. I mean, I just needed more time, but I mean, he was willing to indulge me in anything I wanted to know. But he was just obviously at that point was like he was like a larger than life character. It was like me meeting the Queen or something, right? It was just it was it was a bit much to feel like there was anything very relatable, but it was a really great experience.
That's great. So let's talk about some tips for designers. Think back to the days when you were trying to get your first project. What tip would you give to a new designer trying to get their first project?
Um, I think that the first thing, I guess even before that, is just I hear from a lot of designers today, like that this is a very competitive industry. And so to not find that daunting, to not allow yourself to, like, if you are committed, like you put your blinders on and you go for it. You don't care what anybody says about how competitive it is and how many people there are. Like you're going to find a way. And that's really what it takes today is to not let anything get in your way and to just you just keep going. And so when you start out, you might have a lot of projects that maybe you have a lot of people that you're trying to connect to, and you're not being successful that way, or you're trying to get an internship, or you're trying to get a job, and you just have to just that perseverance is so important. And then that translates to the same thing with getting your first project, right? Like you
Right.
realize that your first project is probably going to come from the universe bringing a whole bunch of things together. Maybe there is a personal connection and a timing, and it's not necessarily like the fact that monetarily, like you're the cheapest because you're the newest. It's a convergence of elements that are going to make that first project happen. And so, just continuing to have the confidence to put your best foot forward and to be confident that eventually it will come, to not have that sort of sense of defeat when
Right.
it takes a while. If you look at what actors have to go through,
Yeah.
I would say that this is probably easier still than that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And really all you need is that first project, isn't it? Then you can point to
Yes,
that.
yeah, and then you just really get that first one under your belt. And I think that um, that desire goes a long way to not pretend to be too cool for school, to not pretend that, like, you've been doing this forever, and yeah, you're
Right.
kind of going to sit back and see what happens, and then you kind of shrug it off if it doesn't happen. You go all in and you say, I recognize I'm newer, but guess what? Because I'm new, I'm going to do what it takes, and I've got the passion to prove myself. I'm going to try that much harder. And you really got to put that forward to somebody so that they take notice of that.
Right. Yeah, those are two great tips for new aspiring designers for sure. For new aspiring designers, how important do you think is the understanding of the business side of things?
Oh, I think it's potentially more important than your skills at design. That
Yeah.
important. Let's put it that way. Um, I think that there's just so many opportunities to do yourself a disservice, or to have things not go well, or to have the opportunity and then sort of blow it if you don't have a baseline knowledge of business. You have to understand that the people that are coming to you are business people, and have to understand what their expectations are. I always think that managing expectations is massive.
Yeah.
That's a
Key.
huge term that I present to my staff, is making sure that that's really clear. And if you don't have your own business laid out in a way that you truly understand it, and that it's really, really clear, then you're not going to be able to do a great job of presenting that to somebody else, a potential client. So I used to wing it all the time, and many cases, um, I could kind of hang on to my hat and make it happen. But in many cases, it just didn't make the experience nearly as good as it could have been.
Right, for sure. Okay, well, thank you so much. Those are really good tips. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience?
Is there anything else? Um, I think that just knowing that this is a passion work that you're going to be doing. And so it is a bit of an emotional roller coaster, and you're all in. And so just managing yourself as well, like just really keeping your headspace from, not going through those like really big highs and lows. If a
Yeah.
client is unhappy with you, you've really got to look inward and understand what your responsibility to that is and learn from it. But you're just going to keep going, and you're going to realize that like you never stop learning in this industry, like never stop. And that's a
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful thing that, that you're just going to find that there's new avenues and just like new technology and just stuff like constant, right? And that's just such an exciting place to be. And so if you can just always be taking it with like a fresh set of eyes and not letting the things that sometimes are a bit tedious wear you out or wear you down, then you're going to find that this is a really, really exciting industry to be in.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love the way you ended that off. Thank you so much. What's some good contact and some social handles to follow and to reach you by?
So you can see us on our website at beyondbeige.com. We're under Beyond Beige on Instagram, and we now have our YouTube channel, and we love doing ridiculous little videos and different things to keep things light. We always want to present that this is, about taking our work seriously, but not taking ourselves too seriously, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're usually putting out there as far as content. Yeah, those are probably and so we're always trying to keep up with social media content. And of
Yeah.
course, there's just my own personal one too at Reisa Pollard. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Riza, for being on here.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah,
Great tips and advice.
great. Oh, wonderful.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. Riza shared some great advice and tips for aspiring designers. And if you liked it, please hit the like button because I'm going to be bringing more interviews like this with other interior designers. And if you have any comments to share, please drop that down. And if you haven't yet, please check out my designersbusinessacademy.net, where I am building and launching an online course for the business of interior design. I'm Eric Lee, and I can turbocharge your success.